And we're live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Ryan. In today's game, we lose with a final score of 113 to 103 against the Hornets tonight. This game started off like it normally does. We don't look extremely good, but we find a way to fight back in the end. And that's what happened tonight. And we didn't get the result that we would have wanted. And honestly, the score looks much closer than what the game actually was. Uh, we saw flashes of guys starting to get into the groove, but then we've seen moments in tonight's loss where it was like, oh, this is painful to watch. But again, the flashes that we've seen where we saw Wiseman have a solid night. He had 16 points, 13 boards, and one block. That's a solid night from him. I'm not complaining in 27 minutes. We've learned from what we've seen from him is that he is very efficient and he takes good shots. That's who he is in the time that we've known him. And he did that again tonight. It seems like every single night he goes out there with the mindset of doing his best every single chance he gets, and he performs. When you look back to his debut with the Warriors, and you're like, wow, this kid is a stud. And then you fast forward a little bit, and you're like, oh no, this is concerning. But then his debut in Detroit, solid. And then every single game since, it's been like he's proving time and time again that he can play at this level and be a key contributor to a good young team in the Pistons. We saw Ivy have another solid night with 16 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 blocks. He was all over the place like he has been. He didn't get the assist numbers like he has previously the last 2 nights. And actually, the last 2 nights plus tonight, if he would have gotten at least 10 plus assists, that would have been 3 nights in a row of a double-double consisting of points and assists for a Pistons rookie, which is actually a record. He did not get it, unfortunately, but it still shows you how solid he's been in this recent stretch. We saw Livers have another solid night of 13 points, two assists, 5 rebounds. He again had another solid night. He's been putting in a little bit of a stretch here where it fluctuates from like a high of like 17 to a low of 9 to back up to 13. He's just finding his groove at the right time for him, especially with Bojan being out. That's a good first step into him being long term with the Pistons. And I know Weaver loves Livers. And so if Livers can continue to do his thing like he has been recently, that's just going to add to his case of staying long term. We saw Bagley have a quiet night. He shot 2 of 6 in 21 minutes. Only had 8 points, and not very good tonight. You could blame the Hornets in the sense of how they game planned. When you have a great coach like Steve Clifford, and you have solid bigs there, and Mike Williams and Nick Richards, it's very easy to game plan against a guy like Marvin Bagley. And don't forget PJ Washington. PJ Washington, definitely the best out of those three. He's more of a wing than a true big man, but he can play, and he definitely guarded Bagley very tough tonight. We saw 17 points from Corey Joseph. He had 14 of those points alone in the third quarter. So that was big for us even coming back in this game, because in moments previously leading to the third quarter with the first and second quarters there, it was kind of like, we're kind of in this, but we're kind of not. And then third quarter, we just kind of fell down to a slump like we normally do. But then Corey Joseph, man, he just lit it up. And then all of a sudden we have a game again, and it's like, okay, I think we have a chance. And it gives you that hope. And that's very, very exciting as a Pistons fan when you have hope in a game, even though it's probably going to end up in a loss. At least when you get hope at some point in the game, it's more refreshing than sitting there in misery the entire time. So when Corey Joseph lights it up for 14 points in the third quarter, you can really appreciate that. We saw RJ Hampton 17 minutes tonight. He came in and you could tell he was more confident with his game. He didn't have a 10 points or so. He only had 8 points, three rebounds. So it's nothing to complain about. We can expect that from him. It's what we've seen from him previously. So just him doing his thing like normally, like normal, getting those key minutes and performing. That's very good to see. Eugene Umarui had another solid night tonight. Finished with 9 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal. He played 27 minutes tonight. You can tell that Dwayne Casey loves him. And that is honestly very refreshing to see because we're seeing a guy who's coming off a 10-day contract with us, who this is like a make it or break it case for him staying with the team long term. And as I said in our previous recap, I called him a Draymond Green-esque player. And the similarities are just they're almost identical in my opinion. And so when you have a guy who's like Draymond Green, who works his tail off, who hits the boards hard, who boxes out, does all the little things right, there's a place for those guys in this league. And Umarui is just showing up when it matters the most. And so you can really, really appreciate something like that out of him. Rodney McGruder had started again, 21 minutes, 4 of 9 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3, finished with 9 points, 2 boards, 1 assist, one steal. He had another solid night because normally we wouldn't be talking about Rodney McGruder that much because he's normally coming off the bench. So when you have him coming in, starting, getting those big minutes that he normally doesn't get, and he's finishing with 9 points, you can't complain. He had 1 point in the game where he crossed up the guy and then goes in for a floater, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Because Rodney normally doesn't do that. So kudos to Rodney McGruder tonight. He had another solid game. Duren came back tonight, which was very good to see. I made a comment in our last recap basically saying I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't come back for the rest of the season, just because it's more of like the chance of getting injured again and then having a rehab all summer would be tough on a young player like him. But he came back and he looked great. He finished with 8 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block. He only had 1 foul, which is very good for him. And he just had a solid game for a comeback, coming off of injury. And so I'm not surprised that Wiseman got the start over him tonight just because he's coming off of injury. That's really it when it comes down to it. Plus, Wiseman has been playing great recently. So it's more of like, yeah, Duren has been performing all season long, so he deserves to get the starting minutes over Wiseman. But he's also missed time recently, and he's missed a lot of weeks. And Wiseman has been consistently putting up at least a double-double. And so it's kind of like, do I take out a guy who's playing good and throw in a guy who's been consistently good all season, who's coming off of injury? In that situation, I'd go no. Even though I love Duren, and even though Duren, as of right now, is better than Wiseman, I would still go with Wiseman just because of how well he's been playing. Because imagine Wiseman not getting the start tonight, giving the start to Duren, and then it's like, what the heck? I've been playing great this last stretch of games. Now I have to come off the bench. What the heck is going on here? But Casey made the right call, even though it ended up in a loss tonight. He still made the right call because Wiseman still played fantastic. Duren, you can expect the guy coming off of injury to have a minute restriction, which he actually did not have tonight, but still didn't play like he normally does in terms of minutes. So you could tell that Casey kind of put a minute restriction on him in a sense, just coming off of injury, not trying to push him too much, and that worked out to our advantage. We had a stretch where Duren caught it up at the top of the key and then just crossed up the guy, brought him back down into the paint, and then hit a little floater on him. And it's like, wow, Duren can cross a guy up, back him down into the paint, and hit a floater with ease. It was very easy for him. So that was very good to see. A lot of our key guys played good tonight. I'm not complaining too much. Uh, the Hornets going into this game were without LaMelo Ball, which if LaMelo would have played, I still think we would have lost because LaMelo is just that good. And since LaMelo's been injured, he's actually out for the rest of the season. But since he's been injured, the Hornets have had key guys of Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier, and Gordon Hayward stepping up. Kelly Oubre leading the charge with 24 points per game, Terry Rozier 20 points per game, and Gordon Hayward 16. And today we limited Gordon Hayward to 2 points, which is very good. But then you have PJ Washington taking his place, dropping 20. Terry Rozier had 21. Kelly Oubre had 27. So it's more of like you can stop one guy, but then with the Hornets, you actually have to pick up another because PJ Washington is a dude. He can ball out. And so when you have options outside of Hayward with a Mike Williams or a PJ Washington or JT Thor, Kai Jones, like you have so many options on this young Hornets team. So I'm not surprised that even by stopping Hayward, another guy stepped up. Because even with Dennis Smith Jr. coming off the bench, had 14 points for them. And it's like, okay, Dennis Smith Jr., where was this when you were playing for us, for one? But then it's also like, how are we allowing Dennis Smith Jr. to have 14 on us? It's just mind-boggling. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's good, but he's not one of the premier best point guards in the league. So it's like, how can we allow a guy to drop 14 on us? Nick Richards, 13 points, 10 rebounds. And so you have these key role players stepping up for the Hornets and what really brought them out to winning this game, other than Terry Rozier having the 21 and Kelly Oubre having the 27 and even PJ Washington having the 20. So I'm happy that we limited Hayward, but then you got to stop all these other guys from doing anything. Killian Hayes came back tonight, which is very good to see. He's missed the last couple games, as has Duren, and so bringing them back into the mix was really, really nice to see. We had a slow, discombobulated start, as I said earlier, but then we got into more comfortable shots, and we came back a little bit, didn't get the result we wanted. Mark Williams did actually leave the game earlier with an injury, but he came back and obviously had a little bit of an impact. Didn't have the scoring impact that he might have wanted or he should have would have had, but he still had a solid impact on the game. We had 8 turnovers. Well, actually, excuse me, 11 turnovers going into the first half. That is not good. That is terrible. At having double-digit turnovers leading into halftime is awful. We finished with 19 turnovers. So we did limit it. We only had 8 more turnovers in the second half, which is good, but 19 is still awful. That's higher than our average, actually. Our average is like 15, so that's not good. But the fact that we almost had our average in the first half, something was going on. It could have been poor communication or Jaden Ivey as of recently because he's had the assist numbers jumping out of the box score. I think it was more of him trying to put the ball in places that he sees it happening rather than trying to wait for everything to slow down a little bit before making the pass. And so you saw that a lot tonight. You saw a fast break attempt where Ivey's going full speed up the court. Bagley's right there, not looking, and Ivy still throws the pass. And it's like, wait a couple more seconds before making that pass because I see what you're trying to do because Bagley's wide open, but just wait for him to turn around and make a notion that he's looking for the ball rather than just forcing it there. And so if you can limit the turnovers by slowing down the game and allowing the game to come to him, I think Ivy is going to be just fine. Even though the numbers weren't there like they have been, I think if he just slows it down, those numbers of turnovers will be down then rather than having 11 at half, which is not good. So again, this game, it was closer in the beginning, but then it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't. but that's just the story for the Pistons after All-Star break. We haven't been sticking with the team consistently uh, this last stretch of games, other than our last one there. In that one, we lost to Bradley Beal and Daniel Gafford's putback, so that one was rough. But otherwise, it's been more of like we've been staying in it in the beginning of the first half, then third quarter we get blown out, and then the fourth quarter we come back, make it a game, but then we still lose. And so that's really been the story of the last stretch of games here. And so if we can play competitively through the entire game rather than by quarter or by half, we'll be fine. But that's just more of a learning curve. This team's still young. We still have to develop. We're out with a lot of key guys. Bojan was still out tonight. Stu is still out tonight. Hami's out for the season, most likely. Alec Burks was out tonight. So we're still missing a lot of key guys. They're slowly getting back into the mix. And so when they slowly get back into the mix, we'll see the competitiveness. We'll see the consistency and just the overall just being together. We'll see the chemistry. And so I think as soon as these guys get back, we'll be fine. But it's still scary to think that we had 11 turnovers in the first half. And so if we can just limit that, because that was not fun. Turning the ball over. It was like we were going down, turnover, going down, turnover. It was just left and right. And so you saw in the second half, we limited that, and that was good. We just needed to calm down a little bit. We were just rushing into things. But I think overall we'll be fine this last couple games, and hopefully we won't have 11 turnovers and a half again. But we'll see. And so yeah, that will do it for today's recap. A final score of 113 to 103 in tonight's loss, and we will catch you all on the flippity flip. Peace.